What better to prop up an incredible account than the best support in the game? Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on my main account because any of you guys might have seen in the previous video, I have pulled Starsage Galathir. He is absolutely amazing. He is one of the best supports in the game, if not the best support in the game. He does so much for you, and honestly, to be fair, a lot of it is focused on Arena, but we will certainly talk about a couple other places you can use him, and we'll talk about builds you might want to use for those particular areas as well, because they might be a little bit different. And now with free gear removal, you can actually move these builds around. So it's nice to explore some of these other options, because you might decide to make a couple of them for different content. With all that said, let's go hop into this. But first, I want to thank Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Raid, you are absolutely amazing. Guys, do check out the link down below if you're looking to start a brand new account. Use that link down below, get yourself a free LNRL, give yourself a free Ugo, and help support the channel. Get started on a fun Raid Shadow Legends journey. Use one of the codes quickly to get yourself an additional legendary as well. Start yourself off with 2 amazing legendaries for the early game, as well as an amazing early to end game epic. And it's now a great time as well. There's Xenomorph for free at the moment as well. There's usually another 7-day login in a couple days too. There are fusions all the time. Getting legendaries is so much easier in Raid Shadow Legends today. So come on, join me, and let's go have some fun exploring Starsage Galathir. So here we have him in all of his glory in his base form here. Starsage Galathir, he is absolutely amazing looking. And, the only thing I think I would prefer is I'm not a huge fan of all the purple, because I think with the purple combined with his pale skin, he feels very much more like a dark elf. I think I would have been happier if this was more of like the glowing blue rather than the glowing purple or something like that. But that's a personal aesthetic choice. Honestly, I still think his color scheme looks awesome and he looks amazing. I just think he kind of looks more like a dark elf than a high elf. But at the same time, traditionally, purple was a royal color. So as possible royalty in the elves, to be fair, I have to read his lore and I don't know that as well. That could be the case as well. And of course, we've got his second form right here when he transforms. He definitely looks a little more monstrous and angry and not the calm and cool and collected champion is, and definitely looks really, really cool. And again, honestly, if this was like a light blue aura instead of all this purple, I think he would still look absolutely amazing as well. But that's just personal preference. He's still really, really cool. I think this is just a really good form. And again, all the mythicals, for the most part, are very amazing, so Raid's knocking the visuals out of the park. As far as the skills are concerned for this dude, he's a mythical support in both forms. He's a force champion. He does have a resistance aura, which is great because resistance is very important to his kit. The A1 here is an AoE attack that fills turn meter of allies by 10%, an additional 5% if they have active buffs placed by this champion. So a 15% AoE turn meter buff on the A1. Very, very cool. Even that 10% buff, very, very cool. He is one of the better speed champions in the game, which is funny because he doesn't have a speed aura, but that's fine because he also needs the resistance for lots of reasons. So the A2 here is removes all debuffs from all allies, heals them by 25% of this champion's max HP. So he is very HP dependent as well. And then you get a block debuff and a turn meter fill. 2 turn block debuffs. Wouldn't mind if that was 3 turns, but you can certainly extend that. 4 turn cooldown, bookable to 3. The heal can book up 20% more, I should say, which is going to be 5% more of his max HP, because that's going to be off of that 25%. So 20% more is another 5% of his max HP, which is pretty cool. He is an attack-based damage dealing champion, but you don't care about the damage. And then he's got this AoE revive. It's very Duchess-esque with the perfect veil. Doesn't get the on this champion, but everyone gets it for 2 turns, which is great. And it also a 50% HP and 50% turn meter, making it much better than Duchess's for Arena specifically, and honestly really, really good for a lot of content because they get some survivability, they get the perfect veil, and they get good turn meter to get a chance to go a second time. Now this is on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. 6-turn cooldown is usable. I don't have mine booked for all this testing, so do keep that in mind. Mythical books are hard to come by. I'm kind of not low on them at the moment. Finally, he's got the passive here. This champion receives 5% less damage for each 100 resistance on this champion, stacks up to 25%. So your goal is to get him with a minimum of 500 resistance. The more resistance, the better for end game content. But you also want him fast. You also want him with a lot of HP, and you certainly don't mind some defense, and you don't mind a little bit of accuracy on this champion as well. He is very, very stat hungry, as are a lot of mythicals, and this is where a blessing goes a long way for him as well. Particularly just that 1-star blessing gives him an extra 11k HP. That is huge. But on top of that, he's got a passive here where he prevents his death and keeps him alive with 1 HP when receiving fatal damage, and then averages his HP back up to where everyone else is as well. So he, in addition to taking up to 25% reduced damage, which goes through every other damage increase in the game. So it's literally just a fat 25% damage reduction. So it's effectively like free strengthen that stacks with strengthen, but also he has a way to prevent death on a 3-turn cooldown. So, and a 3-turn cooldown is not that long. So you can get back to that pretty quickly, especially on a champion that is fast, that's also boosting turn meter. So we flip over to his other form. He's again dealing damage based on attack. We have another AoE attack right here that is a turn meter decrease of 10 to 15%. It does have to be debuffs placed by this champion, but he places a ton of debuffs, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah, he also has some turn meter control on the other end. Turn meter decrease is a great way to control the other team, and the fact that this is his A1 is actually really cool, because that means if you get him counterattacking in some way, shape, or form, you're going to get that extra free turn meter reduction anyway. Or if you have him ally attacking, that's going to be effective. That's also true of his other form as well. So if you have him with an ally attacker as well, you get extra turn meter out of everybody with that A1, regardless of whether or not it is his turn. The A2 here is attacks all enemies before attacking, removes all buffs from all enemies, then puts a block active skills buffs for 2 turns, and it will not trigger counterattack. So you don't get the counterattack, which means that this can actually be really good against Taurus Marichka, for example, or it can be used to help with controlling a Nice who happens to have the counterattack up to get that block active skills on him as well. There's other cool things you can do with this. So the no trigger and counterattacks is a very important part of this particular skill, and block active skills is one of the meta ways to lock out mythicals. So he is a mythical counter for almost every mythical in this form. And then finally, he's got increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, then places decreased resistance and stun on all enemies. 1 turn stun, 2 turn decreased resistance. And it's a place, so you don't have any issues with affinity, so you don't have to worry about any magic champions. Well, actually, it's not magic, it's spirit champions who would possibly resist this. And while there's not a ton of spirit champions in the meta, there are a few of them, and a lot of them are the supports that you actually really want to get that decreased resistance and stun on. And he's got ignore resistance in the books here, ignore resistance in the books here, ignore resistance in the books here. That ignore resistance makes him huge because it really does ease how much accuracy you need on a mythical champion. This is why resistance is no longer super meta unless you can stack it up super high, because most mythicals can ignore 25% or 20% of the resistance as well. And ignoring 20 resistance is actually better than a 20% increase accuracy, because it's not a matter of having a scale of accuracy to resistance. It is once you are close enough to resistance, it is within 50 points where that swing is, give or take. If you are above or below by 50 points is going to depend on how accurate you are going to land skills. So dropping something down by 20% makes it easier to get close, and then that extra 100 or 50 or whatever points is going to make a huge difference. So, and then the fact he can decrease resistance as well, absolutely amazing. The one thing that makes him easier to build is he does get accuracy equal to 75% of the resistance when placing debuffs or activating instant effects, which is pretty much everything he's doing. So he has an effective accuracy equal to 75% of his resistance. And if an enemy's accuracy is higher than this champion's resistance, he has a chance of basically transferring control buffs to an enemy when placing those debuffs. So basically he has a built-in wand of submission if they have enough accuracy to out-accuracy his resistance, which is great. So that's going to help him against champions like an Armands, for example, or a Fabian or something along those lines, when they might put some of those things on you that would, slow him down or stop him and control him. So yeah, great kit, a lot of support. You need a reviver, you need a healer, you need turn meter, you got it. You need lockout, you got it. You need other types of lockout, you got that too. You need turn meter lockout, you got that too. Absolutely amazing champion. He also hits a ton of trials in Chimera, so that's one of the places I will talk to you about using him. And let's go talk about his building, his masteries, his blessings, and his relics. So this is a champion where you probably are not going to go down the offense tree at all. He's a good support champion, and to be fair, if you put War Master on him and you're using him in Hydra, which he probably would do okay in, you're going to get a bunch of extra War Master procs. So from that perspective, it's not the worst thing. But if you're going to be using him in a lot of content where you need the extra resistance, you're going to want to go down the defense tree and get that resistance, and that's going to make a huge difference. The support tree as well adds a lot of good utility to his kit as well. So I think that those are generally the better options, but he's got a bunch of interesting options in here. This is just how I chose to build him. So first of all, we've got the resistance plus 10 here. I like that because I'm going to use him a lot in arena. So I want this decreased damage by crit rate or critical hits by 8%. If you are not going to use him as much in arena, or you're more worried about AoE, you certainly can go here, get bonus defense instead, and then get this decreased defense for AoE attacks. Either way, I recommend getting this rejuvenation. It is absolutely amazing to get extra healing and shields. It's only for him, but that's fine. Went here with Shadow Heal, so that means he's going to get additional healing. Keeping him alive is great because he does have a good revive, and because he's already super tanky as well. So the fact that he can basically steal healing from the other team once per turn is going to make him that much more difficult to kill in any content. Now, Hydra is not necessarily healing an awful lot. Chimera is not healing themselves an awful lot. But in arena, healing is a thing that happens. Plenty of these champions will heal themselves in some way, shape, or form. And it's basically he gets a free 6% max H heal once per his turn whenever the enemy heals. Very, very nice ability there. You could certainly argue that Resurgent is not bad as well. He's got a chance to remove a random debuff when he takes 25% of his max HP or more from a single skill. That's not too bad, but since you're building with a ton of resistance, this is not going to be as important. When they kill a target, he's not going to be killing people, so this is not going to be helpful. On the other hand, Wisdom of Battle, very nice. If he does manage to get controlled, it gives him a chance to get this block debuffs up automatically when he gets rid of that control. So that's kind of nice. You could maybe argue that he has enough resistance that maybe there's something else you could go with, and we'll talk about other options as well. Defend Resurgent is not horrible as well, but for the same reason, I think this is a better one overall for just getting back into a fight and avoiding being multiply controlled. Here, Delay Death is just great in general. It's useful in Chimera. It's useful in other content as well. You could maybe argue that Harvest Despair is not too bad because he does put out those stuns on the one form and he gets the Leech out there as well. But for Arena, Leech is not going to be super helpful for you, and you can't place those debuffs against bosses. So versus bosses, that's not going to be very effective as well. You could certainly think that this might not be too bad. That's going to give him additional 5 points of resistance if he has a buff on him, or maybe even 10 or 15% in some cases. But that's not a lot of resistance. I've never felt that this was great. I think this needs to be a higher number of resist than 5 for this to be a useful mastery. But if you're trying to stack resistance, it's not the worst one you could certainly do. And then you don't want him debuffed. So this one is just bad. I'd never found a good routine for stubbornness outside of champions that debuff themselves, where that extra resistance might be helpful as well. Finally, going down here, we've got Cycle of Revenge. This is always good for arena. It's free turn meter when people get critical hit, and people are going to get critically hit in the arena. It's how you do damage in most cases. So free turn meter 50% of the time. Sure, that sounds good. Selfless Defender, not great, but since he is super tanky, I could see this being one way you could use this to mitigate your other champions from being quite as squishy. I think there are better champions to stick this one on, so I don't think I would go that route. And since we want this increased resistance right here, we're going to go with Retribution because that's the one that's more likely to proc. 25% damage he receives, he'll have a 50% chance of counterattacking. As I've already mentioned, because of the turn meter control on both of his A1s, that is actually really, really clutch. And finally, Deterrence. Not horrible. So if you happen to go this route with Harvest Despair, I could actually see maybe going with Deterrence instead of Retribution, because he might resist this control, but other people may not. And then he gets an A1 to either boost their turn meter to help him get out of it faster, or to drop the enemy's turn meter so they get a chance to not go before you go as well. Those are options for you in there, but I still think that Cycle of Revenge is probably the best of this 3 line here. So you're probably going to use both of these on this line if you're going for Unshakable right here. And in the support line, we mentioned how you want all the HP you can on him. Well, there's some bonus HP. He doesn't need the accuracy, and obviously 10 points of accuracy is not a huge issue, but the extra healing, that's great. So that's extra 5% healing. That's not going to hurt too badly. He doesn't do shield, so that's not going to be super helpful. The first time enemy's killed, he gets the heal. That's not horrible, but honestly, if you're going to go that, the increased accuracy here is not horrible either. But I think I would rather go these two, or if I had to go down this accuracy tree, I probably would then take Exalted Death. Rapid Response is great. He puts up a couple of buffs, and so it's nice to get those buffs, get some extra turn meter when they expire. You could certainly do Arcane Celerity, because that's going to do when the debuffs expire, and he does put up a ton of debuffs as well. So Arcane Celerity is not a bad option for you. Whether that's better than some of these over here, that's going to be debatable. I don't think Healing Savior is going to be great, but then again, if the target has 40% or less HP, then that could be an extra valuable heal, so that's not too bad. Going down the next line here, I don't think Merciful Aid is going to be super, super helpful. I think you are better off with Cycle of Magic, because that's going to mean he's more likely to have his cleanse off of cooldown, or he might get some other skill knocked off of cooldown, so he might be able to transform earlier, or he might get that revive back better, or he might be able to lock people out earlier. It's just a great RNG way to make a champion's cooldowns so much better. And it works, especially if you don't have a book. You're going to find the Cycle of Magic is a lot more reliable than you might like it to be, just because you're going to have longer cooldowns, and so whenever that procs, it's going to be huge. Lore of Steel, given, I think Stone Skin is probably a given for him, and if you're not doing Stone Skin, you might do like something like Protection. And even if you don't do Protection, I could actually see you doing something like a Feral set as well, would be an interesting option on him. Regardless, Lore of Steel is going to be helpful for you because you're getting a bunch of stats from your sets already, so you might as well get some extra stats out of that. And one of those stats is likely to be speed, depending on what type of gear you're throwing on him, but you're also going to get some extra resistance, maybe some extra HP, you know, all good stuff, all stuff you want. Lore of Steel, very good. Evil Eye, probably not what you mean. He's going to only do a 5% turn meter decrease once, and while he'll certainly be able to land it, it's once. So I think I'd much rather have the extra stats to just make him better, and the resetting right here. And then as far as the last line is concerned, Lasting Gifts makes a lot of sense because you want that block debuffs to last 3 turns if you can. You would not mind that increased accuracy lasting a couple turns if you can, so I think that's a good one to have. You could certainly say Spirit Haste is not too bad because he does have the revive, so he speeds up if people die, so that's not a bad option as well. He has no chance to not place anything, so Sniper is useless on him. He does place a good number of debuffs that can be Master Hexed, including block active skills. So Master Hexer is another good option for you if you intend to use the debuff settings more than you intend to use his buff settings. Again, this is probably going to depend on where you use him. In PvP, those debuffs are so much more valuable. In PvE, you're actually not using a lot of those debuffs other than maybe locking people out occasionally, but you're going to be constantly pushing turn meter, either pushing it down or pushing it up. So the extra turn may not be as impactful as the extra turn for some of these buffs that are going to be very, very helpful for you as well. So you could argue either one of these things, and I don't think any of them is a bad option. And as you can see, there's so many good options in support and defense for his kit that I really don't see the value of the offense set, because the offense set's going to add damage to him, and he's not a damage dealer. I've got mine in Life Harvest because I kind of like the ability to get bonus turn meter eventually out of this when people are revived. It's nice once you get to the 3rd level, you get turn meter when anyone is revived. He also gets some extra HP out of this to start with, and it destroys max HP on people that revive. So it allows him to help counter things like a Marishka revive or an enemy reviver as well. It's not huge, but it does stack up, and it's particularly effective against HP damage dealers that are not named Taurus. Other ones that might be useful for him as well, however, is you could certainly argue Lightning Cage is not bad for him, just in case you don't want to let his stuff get stolen. But given he's going to have a ton of resistance, Lightning Cage should be less impactful because ideally you should be able to resist things in general. And if they're irresistible, Lightning Cage is only going to give you that 25% chance to resist having things stolen from you. I guess it's a 50% chance of being stolen if it's transferred or removed. So it's a 50% chance. It's not bad. It is nice to have, but it's not something I see that is very valuable for him. Intimidating Presence, not bad, but honestly, I think his aura is good as an all battles aura, but it's not an aura you're going to be using an awful lot. So I think that is not as effective as you might want for other abilities for him as well. The other one I think is actually really good for him would be something like Temporal Chains, because Temporal Chains is going to decrease your enemy's speed and then eventually give him some turn meter increases when people buff, so he can then jump in before they finish buffing and possibly cleanse their buffs and lock them out. So going to be a very, very valuable way to boost your Galathir's effectiveness as well. Yeah, those are probably the ones I would really think about going with for him. I like Life Harvest. You could certainly go with Sheep as well. Keep in mind that if it's not 6-star Sheep, it's only going to be super effective in his other form. So in form 2 is where he has the extra accuracy and Sheep might be effective. Otherwise, Sheep is not going to be super effective if you don't have a ton of accuracy on him. Although again, you don't need a ton of accuracy to be able to land these debuffs on a lot of nukers and champions that are not built with high accuracy. As far as relics are concerned, Wand of Submission I still think is very, very good because it gives him bonus HP and speed, as well as it gives him a better chance to get that extra stun, fear, true fear, whatever else spat back at whoever might be throwing those at him. He does on his 2nd form have the ability to flop them back. He does have high resistance, but even with a high resistance doesn't mean that the wand can't work, because if somebody tries, it gets the reflection before I think it calculates whether or not it actually lands. So the wand can sometimes reflect back something that wouldn't have landed anyway, being very, very effective. But again, extra speed, extra HP, yes, please, on this dude. The other one I actually thought about was Aspect of Siroth. I thought would be really, really good on him as well, because he's already tanky. He already has a Ignore Death mechanic for once. So why not 2nd Ignore Death mechanic? He's going to be generally fairly fast, so he's going to have a lot of turn meter generally, so he's going to cut down that damage. And especially in his 1st form, it's going to make him even tankier than normal. And it basically means you have to, within 3 turns, kill him multiple times before he'll actually die. And that's why I think Aspect of Siroth is another good one as well. Plus it does give some resistance, and defense is not bad for you as well. Now the reason I ended up deciding on going with the wand is because specifically the wand has this wonderful gem right here, and I actually had a mythical gem for this. The wearer has a 5% chance to get an extra turn when healing an ally with an active skill. It's not going to come up too often, but it basically means he has a 5% chance to get an extra turn when he does his turn meter boost and heal on his A2 on his 1st form, which means if you get that extra turn, you can then immediately transform to the other form and then lock the enemy team out as well on the same 1st turn. So that is kind of cool, even if it is only a 5% chance. So I've got a 1-star blessing on my Starsage Galathir, and this is what I built with him so far, and I've been pretty happy with it. To be fair, I've only been playing with it for honestly like 12 hours. I haven't had him for too long. Got a bunch of HP on him, got some good defense on him. I don't care about the attack. I've got him at 338 speed, which is actually really, really good. I honestly thought I was going to struggle to get him over 300 speed. So the fact I got him almost to 350 speed is great. and I certainly could improve that a little bit more with better glyphing and certainly get better gear on him at some point in time. Plus, if I can ever get him a 6-star blessing, that's going to be 15 extra speed as well. That's going to be huge. Ignore the crit rate and the crit damage. I actually prefer less crit rate if I could, but at some point in time, you got to use what you're using. Almost 700 resistance. As you can see, well, you can't quite see behind me, but we've got 66 extra resistance from Masteries and 6 extra accuracy from Masteries as well. So a little bit of that is going to be from the Lore of Steel. The rest of that's going to be from the other Masteries. But that is getting him to 700-ish resistance. It's not great. I would actually prefer to get him to 800 to 850 minimum, but it's good enough. I've got 200 accuracy as well. And of course, since he's going to get 75% of that resistance, he's going to be getting 75% of 700 resistance added to his accuracy as well, which means his accuracy is going to be well over 500. So he should not struggle to land debuffs on anyone. So specifically for the gear I decided to go with is I decided to go with a pinpoint and stone skin set here. So I've got him in 5-piece stone skin, I believe, because that's just what I ended up in, and 4-piece pinpoint here. Honestly, it would make sense to get another pinpoint piece on him if I could, but some of these stone skin pieces are just absolutely amazing. Like, this is a really, really good weapon. I just wish this was HP percent, but you know what? I'm not going to complain too much about that. This was a pretty solid helmet. And generally the ascensions you're looking for are HP on the top 3 rows here, although defense doesn't hurt. And then the bottom, you're looking for HP, ideally HP percent here, but I'm settling for HP because I don't have a lot of gear. Resistance and a resistance chest is going to be very important on him to get all of that resistance. And that is part of why he is difficult to build, because you are giving up a ton of HP by not having an HP percent chest on him as well. And if you decide you want to go with the HP percent instead, you still might want that extra 29 resistance on that chest as well. But I think you really want to stack as much resistance as you can on this dude, especially if you're going to be going into the arena. Again, boots, speed boots with extra speed. You want resistance, and you want HP percent substats on here if you can. You don't mind accuracy, and you definitely want, again, all that resistance you possibly can. Finally here, I wish this was an HP ring, but it's a decent ring. And again, defense is still valuable on him. An HP amulet, great. And then finally a resistance banner with resistance as the ascension as well. And this is just too good of a stone skin banner for me to not use on this champion, especially the double roll into speed and the +7 I've gotten on there as well. That is my build, but other things I did play around with is I play around with a full 9-piece stone skin. So if we go over here, I had a full 9-piece stone skin without speed, and that is certainly fairly tanky. I lose out a little bit on defense, and as you can see, the accuracy loses out, the resistance goes up just a little bit. I did not build this one for speed. This was just my initial all the resistance and see what I could do for speed. And honestly, it's not a bad build for arena as well if you're going to do that extra stone skin. The 9-piece stone skin is going to be very hard to crack. You could certainly also, instead of the 9-piece stone skins, go with like 6-piece stone skin and some retaliation or reaction gear. Reaction gear is going to be very good for you here because that's going to keep him alive so he can take his first turn. I had an option here where we got more speed, and the resistance generally stayed the same, and he was in the 9-piece stone skin as well. But overall, I think I like the pinpoint build just a little bit better, because the pinpoint build is also going to give me an ability to prevent him from being controlled if for some reason he still doesn't have enough resistance from some of those control debuffs. So he's got the initial resistance of control from being in stone skin, but he'll also have an intercept as well. So if somebody tries to stun him, even if they manage to strip the stone skin, they still may not stun him because he'll have that intercept. And if he doesn't have the intercept, then I've got the ability to flip it around with the wand of submission here as well. So it is layers upon layers upon layers of making this dude a pain to kill and a pain to control. And that's generally how you're going to want to build him. So we're going to give this team here a try. This is going to show how it often construct a lot of the arena teams you're looking for some way to increase the overall speed. So you're looking for a speed aura generally as well with him. You don't necessarily need one. If you're not going to use the speed aura, you could argue that maybe you want to use his resistance aura to make sure that he's always going to be around to make sure he picks up your team. With the speed aura here, we've got Arbiter, who's definitely going to be the fastest on my team at least. We've got Galathir, who is still very, very fast, who should be able to pick up after Arbiter goes. We've got Marius here to possibly strip any stone skin the enemy team might have, and then we have Georgid here to just generally wipe the team if anybody is left after whatever we're going to do with our Marius as well. Honestly, which damage dealers you are going to use is going to be up to you. You could certainly also throw in Armands in here as well, or even use Armands as a lead would be another interesting option if you want the extra control. But we're kind of trying to show off Galathir here as well. So we're going to start this. I'm not going to do this on auto. All right, so we got ourselves out of the way here. So we get our increased speed here. Galathir gets a chance to go next. We are going to give everyone the block active skills and cleanse. That's going to help prevent Gizmak from burning us, which is going to be great. We will overall do that to make sure. And let's see, can we get through his stone skin? Not quite. We did get through Leo's stone skins, though, which is great. So he's still alive, which is fine, but now he's dead, and now he's dead. So doesn't show a lot of the utility of a Starsage Galathir because, again, he's mostly just a speed boost and support in that particular team. But let's go take a look at a couple of different teams that you might attack with that team and see how valuable he's going to be. Okay, so here's another good team we're going to go against as well. This one here, we've got the Arbias, who could certainly cause us some problems as a mythical. We've got a Marius on this team as well as a Siphi. So as long as we can win the speed race, we can then do some fun stuff with Galathir. So we're going to see if we can do that. Okay, so they've got a little bit of stone skin as well. That is fine. Galathir does get a turn. We're going to swap over to the other form. And yes, that's going to cause a problem with Marius, which is unfortunate. But, you know, our Marius is kind of okay at the moment. We're going to lock everybody else other than Marius out, which is a little unfortunate. Our Marius at least can take that extra turn and then try to strip the stone skin off and kill as many people as possible. And that didn't work too well because unfortunately Marius does counter a lot of mythicals. But we had a shot, and if Marius had been able to get his stone skin stripped, we would have won that fight with our Galathir. Now here's another team. This team might actually be faster than me, so this will be kind of interesting to see the survivability of Galathir as well. Now, this is certainly not a high-end team because, you know, Aphidus is not necessarily considered a high-end damage-dealing champion. But we're going to go see how we can do with this particular one as well and show off the Starsage. So he can do his turn meter boost here. We're going to get the protection, I think, here as well, because that's going to help keep everyone alive. Get that increased accuracy would be nice. We get a stun as on the Arbiter as well. That's very effective. Okay, we did not get a chance to get through Mithrala, but you know, we managed to get outspeed everybody. Galathir adds an extra speed booster as well as with an option, or you can certainly use him to lock people out as well. You know, it's kind of hard to show how good he is in Classic Arena without fighting the right teams. That said, we can try this team again with the all-mythic team right here. Now, I don't have to transform Galathir, which is probably part of my mistake I made with this particular team as well. But Galathir here is going to provide the only speed booster we're going to have on this team. And hopefully he is fast enough, and if not, we may need him to pick us up. All right, we survived a huge onslaught here, and yeah, a bunch of these guys died, but I can pick them up, and they're going to have, you know, they're going to have the veils on. Unfortunately, we got those veils removed, but that's fine. We can actually then, do I want to swap? I don't want to swap because we're going to die, so let's just try to strip as many of the other things as we can. So, yeah, this is, well, there we go. There's a prevent defense, which is definitely very helpful as well. I can actually transform safely right now because he is not in his safety stuff yet. We can try to lock everyone out. Not going to lock everyone out, and eventually he is going to die, unfortunately, as well. So, hey, Marius, not the best option, not necessarily the best showcase for him, but let's go take him into live arena and see how well we can do with him in live arena. And to be fair, he may be live arena ban bait. All right, so I always like to pick Marius first just because he's an easy one to lose in high-end arena. And as you can see, he was definitely somebody who was doing very well against Galathir. So Galathir should be my next pick if we can. All right, we lost Arbiter, so that's fine. So we're going to go with Carnage and Galathir here. So we've got a speed lead aura. We have a speed booster who's also a great support. We've got a damage dealer in Marius. Just got to figure out what he's going to pick next. He brought a Gizmak and a lockout champion in Crixia. That is fine. We're going to bring Lazarius, and then we're going to bring my Nice. Now, my Lazarius is built for damage in this particular build at the moment. So if we lose Starsage, I have lost my only speed booster, but I've got a bunch of extra protected damage here as well. Who do we want to ban on this? I am not really scared of Gizmak in this particular configuration, so we are going to go with banning Empress. And we lost the Nice, which made some sense, so we're going to go here with Carnage in the lead. Okay, so Crixie got locked out, and again, this is where I talked about Mythicals being very difficult to keep locked out. His Kymar managed to actually just sleep me as well, so the wand could have been good there, and hey, look at that. We got a sheep proc. That is absolutely amazing. We're going to swap you over to this next form here. And this lockout should be clutch because now we've got everyone locked out. So they can't revive. They can't cleanse anything else. Now the sheep, unfortunately, is a little annoying to get locked out. But, you know, that happens. Now I can go over here with my, what's his name? And let's get some Smackdown. Hello, game. There we go. So that is, so far, so good. Galathir should be going soon enough, and I can now get everyone stunned. That's going to be very helpful. Didn't stun everybody because he got the stun reflected back to him from Kymar, but locking out this dude was one of the best things I could have done. That's going to lock out everyone else as well, because when you kill somebody with Lazarius, that helps lock people out. So, unfortunately, he got reset, which is very annoying. But we're still doing okay. Galathir has been a bit of a decoy here, but he's been helpful. And I can still transform into the other form and then revive everybody. And it looks like we might be okay if I can prevent you from taking a turn. You've got your stuff going, though. So from here, we're just kind of hoping that he can't actually kill my Galathir before my Galathir gets a turn. And to be fair, I don't think he's going to be able to because he just can't do enough damage in his current form. Even though he's getting a ton of extra turns, which is definitely kind of annoying. All right, so we have one turn left, which is annoying, but we can certainly get some turn meter back from here. Hopefully we can get this particular fight going. But again, Galathir is super, super tanky, even in this form where he's not ignoring extra damage because he's got the extra resistance. So we're doing the best we can with some of this stuff. Now, those increased cooldowns are not going to lock me out, but I think Gizmak here is probably going to bring enough damage to probably kill me right here. So again, tough fight, but Galathir was hanging on in the end, you know, and I'll bet my gear is not the best for end game stuff. My main gear is really, really good, but there's some really good champions here in the end game that honestly, I still struggle to deal with. So, you know, you really want all of that resistance. Galathir, as you saw, I was struggling to resist things with Galathir, and it looks like that's the end of Live Arena. So I'm glad we got one of those fights in there. But, you know, let's go and sum up this champion. Even though I lost some of these fights, hopefully you can see how valuable he could be in Arena. But before I do a quick wrap up, I mentioned that we talk about some of the stuff in Chimera here. This is my normal Chimera team. I get between 6 to 8 trials out of it. I can one key Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare. It's kind of sort of auto. You have to manual a couple things to get some of the trials done. And what I would probably do if I had my Galathir booked, which is, to be fair, the problem I'm going to have bringing my Galathir in, is I would probably swap those two guys there and then remove Eltha for Galathir. Galathir is going to bring the extra healing. He's going to bring the block debuffs. He's going to give me that block active skills that I might want otherwise, but I still want Lydia for the decreased defense and the weaken and the block debuffs, and it's never a bad idea to have a second block active skills available. He also has a decreased resistance and increased accuracy. Those are trials that can now happen that'll be easier, because otherwise my only increased accuracy was Marius. So this is going to give me some interesting options in Chimera, but unfortunately he really does need to be booked for this, because the 4-turn cooldowns, even with a high-speed Galathir, are going to be problematic. And unfortunately I'm also losing out on having protection on my Elva. The good news though is, because he can steal buffs from the enemy as well when he does his block active skills, I don't have to worry as much about the Venom form stealing all my buffs in the first turn, as long as the first thing that Galathir does is transform and cleanse all those buffs off of the boss. So yeah, he's a really good Chimera champion, gets a ton of extra trials done. He's probably going to add 3 or 4 trials to my team once I can get him booked. So there you go, guys. That is Starsage Galathir in a nutshell. That was how I would build him. And again, it all is going to depend on where you are, what teams you're attacking. Using him wisely is going to be key to making him amazing. He's actually a solid counter for the turtles, because he strips a bunch of buffs and blocks active skills. So that's going to prevent the turtles from doing some of the turtle things, although they're still going to do a lot of their ally attacks. So you do have to be careful of that. As well as if it's a 4-turn turtle team, Leonardo can still do his absolute nuke. Although if he can't have some buffs on him, because you can't cast those buffs, his absolute nuke is going to struggle to be top tier. So that is certainly a thing as well. He is very good against a lot of champions. He is a very good general utility champion in Arena and in several other areas of the game too. I dropped him into my High Elves Hard Faction Wars team and got another couple floors done. He's going to be useful for you there as well. He is absolutely amazing. He is useful all over the place, and he's one of the best supports in the game, but he is definitely a PvP focused champion. So if you're not going to do a ton of PvP, well, you know, your builds might be a little easier. You're not going to need the stone skin. You might want to go with something like Feral, or you might want to go with the protection set. Otherwise, I think that pinpoint and stone skin set's going to be great, or the double stone skin would be great for him as well. And just stack as much resistance as you possibly can on him. It will make a huge difference. I still need to figure out how to get another 100-ish resistance on him, honestly, to make him a little more viable on the teams I want to use him on as well. So, hey, hopefully you appreciate this video. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And thanks to Raid for sponsoring this video as well. You guys are absolutely amazing. You know, it's kind of cool getting these mythicals. Hopefully you enjoyed this journey. And if you got one, hopefully you are enjoying using him. And if you don't have one, well, maybe this actually gave you a couple of ideas on how to counter him, because I did show off a couple ways you can actually get him countered as well. He is definitely vulnerable to Marius, who is one of the best mythical counters in the game. And, you know, it often depends on how well you can build a Starsage as well. I know that on my free-to-play, I often don't fear Galathir, because I know that unless he's an endgame player, it's hard to build Galathir. And if I know it's hard to build Galathir, it means that he's not always the most feared champion in Arena. But the moment he becomes incredibly well built, he becomes feared. So be one of those players that has a feared Galathir, build him right, have some fun, and until the next video, I am Bront, CatHerder.